What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind-the-scenes stuff, arm yourselves, typology stuff. We've been thinking about what INTJs are rather often in the last few months, even though we aren't making tons of videos about them. But I realized something is not just an aspect of them, but it's one of their core pillars, and that is their individuality. Because I don't think INTJ individuality operates the way other types' individualities do. Or maybe INTJs embody FI individuality the way FI individuality operates within FI types, but they do it in a way that makes it easier to see and differentiate from either TI individuality or different sorts of individuality. Now, we'll start with an anecdote that helped me see this. We talked a long time ago about demon functions and encountering your demon functions. We often talk about the shadow and developing relationships with your shadow functions, but similar to the old blind spot override situation, you'll have these moments, maybe a few in your life, in which you will know your demon function and understand it the way other people understand it. Now, probably 6 years ago now, I was having issues with an INTJ. She was an obnoxious person, she was a cunty person, petty, trying to play people against one another, assuming she, by default, mattered more than other people did. And doing nothing to earn that other than being the squeakiest wheel that got the grease. Agitating and cunting the world into conforming to what she wanted, what she believed to be the case with no results, feeling comfortable saying things to people and acting toward people in ways you don't do unless a dude would have gotten hit, and she had a very punchable face, a very hammerable face. And while not all INTJs are anywhere near as bad as she was, they do a lot of the same shit for most of the same reasons. But we had a disagreement, one of many disagreements, that the essence of the disagreement was trying to get to the root of why she's such a cunt, so unreasonable, so assertive based on nothing, and backed by nothing. And it was a bad one. But it forced me to experience my demon function afterward. Oh no, that's what it was. She'd been sexually entertaining her boyfriend's friend in front of her boyfriend, and this was before I knew the importance of filtering oneself. And I said something along the lines of, I don't want you to be attracted to me. Which, again, in hindsight, even in context with what was going on, that was an infuriating thing to say. But it was true. Whatever was going on there with her little fuck buddy, I didn't want anything to do with that. And that's what started this extended, difficult conflict that all happened in one night. The point is, when I walked away, I had this epiphany that was enlightening and crushing. Why was she such an unreasonable cunt? And over the years, in hindsight, why are so many INTJs unreasonable cunts? It's because of their sense of individuality, and I think FI individuality. Almost solipsistic in nature. They believe they are people. Common mistake. And what I mean by that is they believe by their existing, by their thinking, by their feeling alone, they have a say, not should have a say, but do by default have a say, based on their existing, as if being a thing that exists and thinks and feels entitles them to a say, and entitles them to a lot of things. Entitles them to feeling they must be respected or heard out, entitles them to do the things they want to do in spite of laws or other people's feelings or reason or results. This is the platform INTJs operate from. They exist and they matter. And not just matter within their own sphere, but matter spilling over into other people's spheres. Again, based on nothing other than their existing. And this is an INTP way to frame this INTJ identity thing. But what did I see in my epiphany, in which, of course, I knew them better than they knew themselves? Because they don't know themselves very well, by the way. They're very familiar with their point of view. They are not so familiar with even potentially thinking outside their point of view or considering consequences of other people's feelings, or that when results aren't achieved in doing things they want to do them, maybe the problem is with them, not with the world, with existence itself. I felt what it meant, or probably meant, to be an individual. That group's problem with me, including the cuckold, was my sexist, dehumanizing, objectifying way of looking at things. Objects among objects. To them, that was basically humanly wrong. Now, the issue with that objection is we are objects among objects, and however you feel about that doesn't change anything. If you don't like that, become a better object, or become an object capable of securing results instead of expecting results to be handed to you in spite of your retarded point of view. Become an object worth being respected if respect is something you want, because respect is an interesting game. It's a silly game. Nobody deserves respect by default. And even if you want respect, you don't just do one thing that you deem to be worthy of respect and then get respect. You might get that respect from some people, but you won't get it from other people. It's a game. We are objects playing games. If you want things, you need to learn to play the game instead of expecting everything to be handed to you in spite of yourself, and then have a meltdown when you don't get it. Like, how sustainable do you think that is when a situation gets ugly? And again, I'll reiterate, not all INTJs are that bad. In fact, there are decent INTJs. We'll get to this. But it's this poisonous assumption of self. But in my epiphany, which was a breakdown, it really fucked me up emotionally for days. I, for a moment, understood what it meant to feel like you are a person. Like your personhood was more important than reality. I'm having trouble wording this. I felt what it meant to be someone, for it to feel important to you to be someone by default, and how negative it felt for that basic personhood, that basic individuality, to be threatened in any way. It sounds simple, but it had a profound impact on me when it happened. I understood what it meant to be a person for about 5 minutes, and then I went back to my normal self, and I hated it even more. What a poor baby you are. Existence not realizing this one peanut among 500 peanuts is special. If you want people to baby you, be more babyable. Because INTJ, if that personhood thing alone were an INTJ's perspective, and they wanted to be babied, and they acted babyable, then maybe people would be willing to accommodate that view of the world, because there is something innocent about it, pure about it. But INTJs aren't babyable. They're cunty. Imagine that 1 in 500 peanuts getting in your face and demanding to be planted in some special soil and to be treated like the best peanut, but also not to be treated like a peanut, acting like it's better than you, even though you're both peanuts. Because, see, that's what it is. It's the expectation of their personhood being respected outside reason, to the detriment or to the invalidation of others' personhoods. That's why I don't like them. They don't extend to others the empathy or sympathy they expect to be extended to them. And see, that's something that is the case even in the INTJs I like. Even in the higher level INTJs. You could call it a persistent double standard, but more realistically, if you want to try to flavor it like in a drink or something, an INTJ's flavor is doing what they want to do without concern for other people or the situation, and maybe they think they're being considerate of other people or the situation, but it's from, or it's within the narrow range they think a person should have concern extended to them. As in, if they're meeting you on any level, they are meeting you on their level if they're doing it at all, and then expecting to get away with it. They're the kind of people, an example, you see they're carrying a bunch of heavy shit, you hold the door open for them, then you're carrying a bunch of heavy shit and they don't hold the door open for you because, or in this instance, in this particular INTJ's point of view, what you did was unnecessary or unasked for, and therefore there is no expectation for them to reciprocate. It's really sick psychopathic shit. You can feel whatever you want to feel about my dehumanizing point of view, but it comes naturally to me, and I think maybe this is an FE thing across the board, even with shitty that's the fucking thing, even with shitty FE types. Maybe they're doing it in bad faith, but there is an understanding when someone is cool to you, you are cool to them. If someone meets you on your level, you meet them on their level. And again, that happens even with FE types you hate. It's this necessary reciprocity. Well, I wouldn't say necessary because you are not obligated to do it. But if you don't, again, even if you hate them, you feel it. Or if you don't reciprocate, choose not to reciprocate, then that's a big deal. Even if there is every reason in the world for you not to reciprocate. Versus an INTJ who does not think about it that way. And it's curious because this is why I say I'm not sure if this is, I know it has something to do with FI, but I don't know if this is FI individuality focused or if this is specifically INTJ individuality. Because you do get, what's the word? Like parallel evolution, that's what it is. in which FE types and TE types, in many instances, will do the same social shit for one another, and their reasons for doing it will be totally different, but they'll do it. You don't get that with INTJs. And even in these instances, they do something that would seem to be positive. It's not about seeing or considering other people. It is what they individually believe needs to happen. I've found INTJs to be very generous people. One of my, I'm almost ashamed to say it, but one of my favorite dealing with people memories is when an INTJ brought me some egg rolls. I didn't ask for them. And at first I was actually a bit aggravated because I hate when people just give me things because now I feel like I owe them, and he knew that. But damn, they were good egg rolls. That's my own humanity. That's my own gluttony. A lapse in my way of looking at things. But again, that was a generous, kindly move, but it had nothing to do with me as a person. If you understand what I'm saying to you, that action was something done because this individual believed that's what friends were supposed to do. But he knew that I don't like people giving me shit. Unless there is a clear way for me to immediately pay them back or they are paying me back. And this is another one of those things, maybe one of my issues. If there is one thing wrong out of 20, or one thing I can't rely on out of 20, for me, the entire thing goes. I accept that as one of my shortcomings. I have good reasons for thinking that way and doing things that way, but there are ways not to need to do that. That's a preference that I pay for. I don't expect the world to reward me for my stupid preferences. If you make a bad play, you pay for it. If you choose to continue making bad plays, you accept the price for continuing to play the way you want to play. You don't expect or demand or threaten someone to change the rules of a game because you're bad at it or you don't like it. And if you want to look at that in a moral sense and say, yes, you should change the rules if you don't like it or something like that, it needs to be to the benefit of more people than just you. And it especially shouldn't be changing the game and the rules and expecting and demanding them to be changed specifically to benefit just you. It is a built-in narcissism. And while that is annoying, I hate INTJs, there is a benefit to this. By and large, INTJs don't do anything about it. They don't even recognize it as something they need to do anything about. Presumably, unless they are made to learn, corrected by existence. But even then, an INTJ's instinct is to double down, not to reflect and adapt and figure out how to play the game. It's their belief, their personhood is so intense, it's like they create their own hells because they act in ways that invite the world to show them that they are subject to the world, not above it. And then instead of adapting, almost always they will double down and invite further pain. Well, whining once got me smacked. I think I'll whine even louder. That'll fix it. And when they're dealing with people, I'm guessing there are enough people out there who will accommodate them. But human nature at its base won't accommodate that forever. Not to mention normal nature. But for non-INTJs, the way INTJs are is a benefit. Specifically because they don't play the game well. They'll usually be good at certain mechanical TE aspects of life, but in all other spheres, they make themselves noticeable, they make themselves hateable, they do not adapt their strategies when something isn't working. Very much like low-level INTPs, actually, except where an INTP will blame the world for not working the way the INTP believes the world is supposed to work, the INTJ will freak out because by not getting what they want, their personhood is being disrespected. I think that's why there are so many INTJs in these fringe political groups. And also probably why INTJs are so political by default. It's the grand thumbsucker. Because you aren't getting what you want, you're a victim, you're being attacked, this is being perpetrated against you. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're a retard who can't play the game. So those people over there are responsible, or society at large is responsible. And because you're a victim, you don't need to do anything. And these books and these talking heads, these people who look and sound very official, say that you're a poor baby, you're a victim, and therefore you don't need to do anything other than believe what you're told to believe and repeat what you're told, because you don't need to change at all. You don't need to challenge yourself at all. You're a victim. It has nothing to do with the fact the world and people are unfair by default and nobody will come to save you but you, and then they get increasingly insufferable. You think young INTJs are annoying. Have you ever dealt with a baby boomer INTJ or a Gen X INTJ? And I say again, it's not this idea of personhood that I have a problem with. I think you're wrong. You are an object. You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. But even if you do have some intense belief in yourself, in your personhood, you are still subject to the world as everybody else is. I think you're wrong, but that's by itself, that wouldn't be the problem. It is the inability to extend what one expects to be given to them to give unto others as well. To assume that your sole point of view, especially in the moral or from a moral lens, is what is. Expecting a lot, giving nothing, and also taking quite a lot. Now, I mentioned earlier, I have a feeling about INTJs. It is a suspicious, positive feeling. And I say it's suspicious because even if it were working quotes correctly, for me personally, this individuality versus objects among objects thing is an eternal deal breaker. Because even if an INTJ were walking around doing exclusively saintly things on the planet, it would be utterly without acknowledgement of other people as other people. As in, you can shit on objects among objects, but objects recognize other objects. And that's another fundamental deal breaker thing I've run into with people. Some people believe the outcome is more important than the reason behind what was done to achieve that outcome. I understand that perspective, but I don't agree with it at all. Because an outcome is a static thing, whereas reasoning is an outcome producer, and if there is something wrong with the reasoning, then a positive outcome or even a bunch of positive outcomes, those are flukes, and you have that 1 in 20 tragedy on its way eventually, because the machine isn't calibrated correctly. Nonetheless, I have an irrational, positive suspicion about INTJs. The suspicion that there is something in them I am missing or haven't put together correctly. Now that I'm thinking about it and feeling about it, I'm feeling this will end up or turn into something similar to what I experienced with FI. Hating it initially and then finding it. As in, I recognize the purpose of INTJs in society. They have a role, that role is necessary, they fill it. Nonetheless, I don't like them. Yet, I feel there is something likable in them that I haven't found yet. And this is in contrast with INFJs. I don't like INFJs either. Well, this is tricky. I don't feel burning hatred for INFJs very often. As with the INTJs, I see the social role they're supposed to fill. It's a necessary role, they fill it. Great. And actually, I like INFJs. I like the role they fill, but it is a dry, distant like. As in, I could see myself working closely with an INFJ on something important, but never being close to them. With INTJs, it's a different story. I feel there is something likable in INTJs, not just respect, not just an admiration, not even the ability to cooperate. I mean, with INFJs, I still cooperate with INFJs rather regularly. We get along great. INFJs are some of the best professional contacts you can meet. They're very smart. They give you good insight on things. But I'll never be close to one. INTJs, I feel there is something close. There is a closeness in them that I'm missing. See, that's another thing to pay attention to when you have extreme negative emotions. An intense negative feeling, not some corny shit like it's a different emotion in a different mask. A negative emotion can be a negative emotion, and it probably should be a negative emotion. But usually there are other emotions that are equally intense within it. So whenever you hate something, think about what other intense emotions are in there. And those other emotions don't necessarily need to be linked with the thing that the negative emotion is focused on, as in, I don't think love and hate are always tied together the way people act like they are. Or in the instances they are, your hatred toward one, you might not even hate something, is the thing. Emotions are tricky. Maybe in these instances you despise something intensely. The true emotion you're feeling is love for a different thing, but the hatred both disguises the emotion you're really feeling and focuses you into a different direction. My point in saying all this is, considering the degree to which I hate INTJs, I think both there is something positive in them I'm missing beyond the social purpose they serve. There is something in them to like, even from my frame of reference, but I haven't found it. And also maybe it's pointing me in a different direction. Maybe there is something skulking around in the shadows that I feel even stronger about, but haven't located yet. ISTJs, maybe? Anytime I think about INTJs, I also think about, well, ISTJs, yes. ISTPs, too. I'm not sure. Lots of rambling. Sometimes I find my point when I'm talking about things. The takeaway from this final segment of rambling is I think there is a way the INTJ machine can be calibrated to be greater in the life game than just serving the purpose they are, well, they serve involuntarily. They make themselves serve it. Oh shit, maybe that's the point. There is a way for INTJs to be these super individuals, but it's not the way they go about doing things usually, and it's not a way I've been able to identify yet. But I think it's there. I think there's a way to calibrate it, and when we find that thing, I feel confident that'll be a game changer. And if uniqueness and individuality and personhood are your goals, then this is a throne that can be all yours, because other INTJs won't rise to this occasion. They'll do what they always do, which is doing what they always do, until or unless reality takes away their ability to do what they always do. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what differentiates them. INTJs who have been deprived of their ability to do the standard INTJ shit. Somehow made to know the objects among objects point of view, or to evolve the personhood point of view into something less entitled, narcissistic. But maybe that's the key. What does it mean to understand personhood the way INTJs understand personhood without doing personhood the way they do it? Maybe we'll find out one day. But there is something positive and elusive. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.